So digging back into the archives, I'm going to finally fulfill a viewer request that I had maybe about a couple weeks ago. To review, well, he wanted me to review a ThinkPad T40, but I don't have any of those left. Those have been gone in scrap since about 2008. Rather unfortunately. But instead I'm going to do my T61, as you saw. This is going to be an in-depth review, so the length of the video might be a little bit long. But just bear with me. I can guarantee you that you might get a little bit of information out of this. Maybe not. But either way, enjoy. So I'm going to start with the specifications and other little minor details to begin with. It was released in 2007. The T61 was, as a successor to the T60, which I'm going to be referring to back and forth during this review, the T60. This particular machine has a 1.8 GHz Intel Core 2 Duo T7100, marked as a Centrino Pro. It has an 800 MHz front-side bus and 2 MB of cache. It has a gigabyte of memory, which is a I want to say 6400, but it's 5300 DDR2 memory. It has a 320 gigabyte. Blech. Okay, so let's start off with the specs. To begin with, it has a Intel Centrino Pro, or well, actually, an Intel Core 2 Duo T7100 running at 1.8 GHz with an 800 MHz front-side bus and 2 MB of cache. It has 1 GB of PC2 5300 memory, DDR2, a 320 GB serial ATA, or SATA, depending on how you want to say it, Seagate hard drive, and it's running Windows Vista Service Pack 2. More on that in a little. It's the ultimate version. More on that in a little bit later. Graphics-wise, this thing has a Intel Mobile 965 chipset running with the GMA driver. So I can do all sorts of things if the driver was present in the tray, but it is not, which is rather disappointing. So now let me go through the ports. On the front, you see something you don't see very often on laptops these days. A FireWire port. Or, if you want to use what they call it, an IEEE 1394 port. You don't see these very often. You just don't. They're not really included on today's laptops. They're more of like a business end kind of thing. That would make sense because this is a business end kind of laptop. Beside it, you have the wireless switch, which controls the wireless radios, the Bluetooth, and the 802.11b/g/n, which I believe is an Intel card. Over here you have your audio out, which could serve for a headphone output or for a speaker output, and a microphone. On this side, that's better. On this side, you have the hard drive bay door, the multi-bay, which you can eject simply by pushing this lever, and it will disconnect it from the machine and you can pull it out. I really wouldn't recommend doing that while the machine is on, but too late now. And you have a USB port beside it. On the back, we have a Kensington lock. This particular machine has the 4-cell battery, the smaller size battery, serviceable used part, the DC input, which is 20 volts, and I believe that's a fan intake, or maybe that's a heatsink dissipation vent. Either way, it's a vent, and then a screw. And on this side, port heaven. First, we have the fan exhaust. We have a VGA port, so you can drive a VGA monitor with this thing. It's old enough that it will let you do that. You have So on this side, going from right to left, we have a PCMCIA card, which actually has an express card in the top, which is a nice feature. 2 more USB ports. An Ethernet with your indicators there. A telephone modem, which is built in. It's old enough that it has that. You can drive a VGA monitor with this. And you have your fan exhaust here. So let's really take a look at the build quality. It's not like some of your today's cheap laptops where it's flexible as hell. This is actually rather stiff and durable. Doesn't feel like it was going to fall apart in a year. And it's black. It's a sleek color. Just ask Steve Jobs. Or you could ask Steve Jobs if he was still alive. Ask Phil Schiller. But it's not like it's one of those flexible pieces of crap that you can get today for about $500 at the local Best Buy. It does not feel cheap. It feels rugged, and it feels durable, and it feels sturdy. It's something that you know is going to last for a long time. Now, as for these hinges, these are metal hinges, which are tight as hell, so you're going to need 2 hands if you want to open it up. As you can clearly tell, this is rather difficult. But another thing is that instead of the T60 having the entire thing magnesium, the entire display bezel was magnesium. Or, well, the bezel was actually plastic, the internals was magnesium. This is now plastic, with just the magnesium roll cage inside. And that allows for the better penetration of radio waves, and thus better 802.11 reception and the greater wireless range. The keyboard, which this isn't really a good example because this is filled with wear. If I had one of my other low-note machines up here at the time, I would show you. But this one is wearing down. But other than that, forget the machine's age, forget the wearing down. It is an excellent keyboard. And it's spill-proof, so if you happen to spill your morning Starbucks coffee, it's going to go right through the machine and out. It's not going to damage your keyboard, it's not going to damage your motherboard, it's not going to damage any components. As far as I know. I haven't tried this myself, and I don't have any plans to. And up there, you can see, you have a keyboard light, which you can light up in low-light situations, similar to the Macintoshes that have the keyboard ambient backlighting. And of course, this model has the fingerprint sensor. Now onto the hard drive. It is, what's the right word here? I don't know. Onto the hard drive, it is protected by the roll cage, and it's also shock mounted. And in addition, if you accidentally drop your machine or something, the built-in APS software that comes bundled with it, or if you install it, if you rebuild it, will instantly shut hard drive activity down if it's dropped, and it will protect your data from being wiped. Overall, the design is pretty much the same as the T60, but it's wider. And instead of having the speakers up here, it has them on the side, which is a little bit better. However, one thing that people might not like is this new logo. They might like the older IBM logo, but don't worry, that's an option. This is just for mainly other machines purchased by the business end. Now the screen, I don't know if I got all that, but the screen is one of the low points, one of the downfalls of the T61. The brightness is a little bad. The brightness is poor, actually. I found that with my satellite, and with Fujitsu's and HP's related laptops, the brightness was higher, and the brightness was better. And the picture didn't seem washed out if you were to have it, like, front lighting, light shining on it. But with the T61, if you have the sun behind you, shining down on the machine, it looks a little washed out and whitish, and it's really hard to see. It's as if there's no backlight. And one thing that people might not like if they've used a T60 is that the flex view option is gone. There's no more flex view, which is a sad thing. I've used a T60 before, and the flex view was actually one of the strong points, I'd have to say, about the display. And vertical viewing on these machines is poor. I mean, look at the discoloration there. You can really see it with the camera. Look at the discoloration. Whereas you take the horizontal, and it's really not that bad until you get over here. It really stays consistent. Vertical, well, need not apply today. And the speakers are another low point, and speakers are really a low point of laptops in general, but these ones are quiet. So you won't want this machine sitting here, and you standing, say, over there, playing a DVD, playing a movie, playing something, playing iTunes, because it really won't sound that good. It'll sound way too quiet, and it'll be really hard to pick it up, especially voice. Voice is one of the things that is just so quiet that you can barely hear it. But Lenovo thought about that, it seems, and they put the headphone port on the front, which is nice because it makes it easier to access and easier to plug in something. However, if you want to plug in external speakers, you have to have the wires running out in front of the machine, which is really not the greatest thing. However, the advantages of such outweigh the disadvantages, and overall, it's got a good sound system. Speakers could be better, but they're okay. At least compared to some of the other laptops I've used. And performance-wise, without taking into account anybody else's experience, just mine and mine only. Performance-wise, it gets the job done. But it's rather slow when it comes down to running multiple applications, such as if I want to browse the internet using Firefox and I want to render a video at the same time. Really, really slow. Wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend just letting it sit here, render the video, then going online. And it's a trade-off, but it's okay. I'm also finding that since I've upgraded the operating system to a Vista Ultimate, that it's gotten a little bit slower. Mainly probably due to the fact of the lack of memory. And the slowness of the memory itself. But it likes to lock out the keyboard, and it likes to lock out the mouse. Which both, I believe, share the same PS2 input. So I can say that it likes to lock out the PS2 bus. Such to the point that it can become unreliable, and it might not even give them back at all. You have to restart the machine completely. That's just my experience. You might not find that it does that with you. But it might do it with you. Speaking of the mouse, we have two options here. We have the touchpad, and we have the eraser head. The eraser head has been an IBM innovation since the early 90s-ish. In fact, I believe the early 90s, yes. I've always found that it's not as easy to maneuver as a touchpad, but for some, this is the way to go. And for some, they can maneuver it better than I can. I've just grown up being able to use either an external mouse or the touchpad, or a trackball. Trackballs I find are really bad though too, so funny how I have a mixed experience. And I'm finding that this touchpad wears down a little bit. It wears down quickly. In fact, the first thing to wear was the touchpad and the buttons. And in fact, this button's actually kind of breaking. Jeez. So if this breaks completely, I'm going to find myself using the track point and learning how to use the track point, which shouldn't be too hard. I mean, the track point is pretty much just like a track ball, only slightly different, using it with one finger. And now for the final thing, the battery. Now, because I have a 4-cell battery life, I understand, is not going to be as great as it could be. But I'm finding that the battery life could be better. At least with a 4-cell battery, it could be better. I'm getting about normal use, maybe about an hour and a half, an hour 50 minutes, sometimes even 2 hours at best. So for what I'm using a machine for, I would want the bigger battery. But of course, hindsight is hindsight. hindsight's 20/20 as well. And I'll live with what I have, and that is the 4-cell battery. The 8-cell, which is bigger, sticks out considerably more than the 4-cell does, in fact. If you see my previous videos, you will see a video of another ThinkPad with the bigger battery. And you will see that it adds considerable considerable heft to the machine. And that pretty much concludes my review here. And oh, one more thing. This. I've never seen this before on any other laptop, but that is the video cable. That's what that is. I have never seen that before. An exposed video cable. As long as it doesn't get punctured, I suppose it's okay. And that concludes my review of the IBM Thinkpad T61. Hopefully this review was somewhat helpful and somewhat informative and not too boring. And hopefully this helps you. So thank you for watching. If you feel free to leave a comment down below. Hope to see you next time. And until then, enjoy your T61.